Welcome to Amazing Business Radio with best-selling author and customer service and business expert, Shep Hyken. Shep will talk with some of the smartest thinkers in business to help make you more successful in your professional and personal life. This is Amazing Business Radio with Shep Hyken.
Hello, everybody. It's Shep Hyken here, and we are back with another episode of Amazing Business Radio. I am excited to bring back this guest. It's his third appearance on the show, and he's written a book, The Century-Old Startup, The Nordstrom Way of Embracing Change, Challenges, and a Corporate Culture of Customer Service, and it's Robert Spector. Robert, to me, is one of the best customer service experts about an iconic brand that many of us have. If we don't actually go there, we know all about Nordstrom being one of the best and greatest brands when it comes to customer service. We're going to be talking about his new book, learning from him. But before we get into the interview, quick announcement. If you've got an amazing customer service story that you want to share or a question, please reach out to me on any social channel. I am everywhere. If it is a question, use the hashtag AskShep. I will answer the question there in the social channel, on this show, in my newsletter, The Shepherd Letter, or on my TV show, Be Amazing or Go Home, which can be found on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Prime, and you can go to my favorite website, beamazing.tv. That's where you can look at all the episodes and binge just like you do a favorite Netflix or Amazon Prime series. We have 3 years worth of shows on there. So let's jump in. Oh, by the way, it's at beamazing.tv. That's beamazing.tv. I don't know if I mentioned that, but now I did, probably 2 or 3 times. Let's get into the interview. Mr. Robert Spector. Robert, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Shep. It's great to be here. We have to stop meeting like this.
So I think you're a three-peat offender here. You've been on 3 times. I just want to give it a little history, and I can't remember if we ever talked about this before, but I thought it was earlier than this, but it makes sense. 1995, you came to St. Louis. You were promoting a book when you came to Library Limited, which unfortunately is no longer here, but I live literally 2 blocks from where the location of that store was now. And I stood in line to shake your hand to buy your book. And I listened to your words of wisdom as I learned about one of the most iconic brands in the world, Nordstrom. And here you are. You've done revisions on the book. You've written some other books as well, but I am now holding in my hand The Century-Old Startup, The Nordstrom Way of Embracing Change, Challenges, and a Culture of Customer Service. And this is a great book. The first thing I love about it is it's not a hugely overbearing book to read. We're looking at about 150 or so pages. Nice, easy book, and great. I mean, this is the history of the brand that I've been shopping at. By the way, I went there today. I'm saying this quietly because somebody might be listening, but I bought my Mother's Day present for my wife today at Nordstrom. But
all right. I will pass that on to Pete and Eric Nordstrom, and
so
it helps.
Well, here we are. Let's talk about the book. That's why we're here. And again, welcome back to the show. You've been doing quite a bit. So why another book about Nordstrom? And this one is quite a bit different than the last one. This just is not about the Nordstrom way. There's history here. It's more analytical of the way people think from the company, not just what we observe about the company.
Well, the genesis starts back in March of 2020 when COVID was happening. As we all remember, businesses were closing. So Nordstrom stores were closed. They figured they'd be closed for, 3 months. Or 3 weeks. It was more like 6 or 7 weeks. And the offices were closed. Nobody was going in. So Pete and Eric Nordstrom, the 2 brothers of the 4th generation who run the company today, did a Zoom call, a Zoom broadcast every Friday to let people know what's going on. Because if you don't communicate, and communication is part of what my book is about, people will speculate. There'll be rumors. There'll be falsehoods. So the only way for a leader to get out in front is to be the one to talk and say, this is where we are. This is our financial situation. This is how we're going to bring customers back. This is how we're going to stay sanitary, et cetera. But during those calls, the brothers would remind employees, we've been around for 120 plus years. We've experienced world wars, depression, recessions, et cetera. We know how to survive. And I said to myself, that's a book. It's different than the other Nordstrom books I wrote, but at a time when people were trying to figure out how to survive, I figured this was a good blueprint.
Well, they've obviously been surviving. There's been not just COVID was a disruptor, but how about online internet? Here's an iconic brand that you go to, a store to be served by the best trained people. By the way, taking from your book, who trains them? The parents trained them. I'll never forget. They hire good people with good values that understand what it's like to take care of people. And then, we lose that because so many people go to the internet now to go online to buy. And Nordstrom did a nice job. I think one of the big points of the last book was focused on e-commerce.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you're agreeing with me. You wrote the book.
Brilliant observation on your part. Nordstrom being in Seattle, which is also the home of Amazon, as Amazon started to develop, people at Nordstrom certainly took notice. And so the Amazon was launched in 1995. Nordstrom.com was launched in 1998. And it was all done in-house. And during COVID, fast forward, over 50% of their business was online, and now it's under 50%, but it's a vital part of their business. And the whole idea is you have to embrace what's obviously the future, the technology, and find how that it can apply to what you do. And that's exactly what they did. I mean, they experimented back in the early 90s with ordering through television, or you could order on a plane. It's always the philosophy is, let's try it. If it works, great. If not, we move on. So you can't be afraid to experiment, and you can't do what you've been doing the whole time. And so the whole online thing fits perfectly into what Nordstrom does.
Yeah. And by the way, I like that. They say hire slow, fire fast. It's look at processes, new ideas, innovation, look at it carefully. And if it doesn't work, cut it and move on. Because I've seen companies practically die, if not actually die, because they didn't let go fast enough.
Right. People, especially in the Seattle area where Nordstrom has been around since the beginning, and people have been saying this to me for 30 years. Nordstrom is not like it used to be. And my answer is, if Nordstrom was like it used to be, it would be Sears.
Right.
You have to change because especially, retail is just an example, but all sorts of ways, figure out the best way to take care of the customer. Because ultimately, I mean, you and I talk about customer service. Ultimately, is how does it positively impact the customer? During that period when COVID, but Nordstrom was changing, they came up with a slogan called "Closer to You." Now, you'd think that's counterintuitive because we're in a time when we're supposed to keep distance from everybody, and they're saying, we want to be closer to you, but it's closer to you through omni-channel, by websites, apps on your phone, stores, because they do have a lot of stores, and a new concept which we can get into later called Nordstrom Local, and I can explain about that later.
Yep. So, and here's I think one of the core values of Nordstrom, as you write in your book, is that a core value is curious and ever changing. And so you approach problems. COVID could be one, the advent of really e-commerce, almost starting in the backyard with Amazon, although they weren't the first ones to have an online anything, but they sure knew how to take a bookstore and turn it into one of the largest e-commerce, just world dominating powers over there at Amazon, and how just down the street you're looking at things. So you approach problems with curiosity and create solutions. And that's and I'm reading this from your book, that's part of the core value. You disrupt the status quo to solve customer needs in new and relevant ways. Those are the hallmarks of a setup. Those, I might add, are the hallmarks of Nordstrom, or else you wouldn't have put that into the book. So I think that's pretty much what I would say is a big focal point. Curious, how are we going to deal with this? And then we need to change.
Right. And you have to accept that change is part of life. And either you're moving ahead, or if you're standing still, you're falling behind. So, and with Nordstrom and technology, they've spent billions on improving their technology. But it starts out, how does this technology positively impact the customer? How does it make it easier for a customer to buy stuff from us? That's the driving force. Make it easy for the customer to do business with you.
At any time, do you lose that personal connection? I realize it's easier for customers to go online, but one of the things I love about going into a Nordstrom is my person, whoever that person is there and staying in touch with me, and I have a relationship with the person that I buy from. That's hard to do on the internet.
Actually, there is a guy who I interviewed in the book. His name is Jesse James Barnhart. He goes by Jesse James. That's easier to remember. He's worked for Nordstrom for many years, first in San Diego, now in Pittsburgh. He works his Instagram account, and in the past 2 years, he's sold over $2 million worth of merchandise. He works he has regular customers who he's never met. So this is kind of the digital form of what you just talked about.
Yeah,
my person. He's that person, but I've never met him. I've never been in the same room with him. So wow. There are ways. I mean, he's a go-getter. He's got a great personality. He romances the product, and he sells it. Customer says, I just bought this from Jesse James. So all this feeds on itself. He's got over 100,000 followers.
Wow, that is
online in Pittsburgh.
That's the true definition of the entrepreneurial spirit in Nordstrom's is putting out there. Let's take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to talk about the acronym FACTS. These are the core. This is the core component of the book, the chapters in the book, where each one of these letters stand for something very important. We've already actually covered them without using the words in a couple of the explanations that you've had. So we are talking with the amazing author, Robert Spector, the expert in everything about Nordstrom. And this is Amazing Business Radio, and we are coming right back. Don't go away. One of my favorite sayings is that customer service isn't a department, it's a philosophy. And it's a philosophy that must be embraced by everyone in the organization all the time, and that's 24/7. So if customer service is important to you, and I know it is, then you will love our virtual training, the ultimate on-demand customer service and experience training program that you can access anytime, anywhere. Now, the course content applies to everyone, regardless of position and responsibility, from senior executives to the most recently hired and everyone in between. You'll discover tips, ideas, and strategies that won't cost your company a fortune, but will produce what I call moments of magic, those positive experiences, and it will happen at every level of your organization. So go to Customer Service VT. That's V as in virtual, T as in training. That's customerservicevt.com. It's time to get customer focused.
You're listening to Amazing Business Radio with best-selling author and customer service and business expert, Shep Hyken.
We're back on Amazing Business Radio talking with Robert Spector, the author of the century-old startup, The Nordstrom Way of Embracing Change, Challenges, and a Culture of Customer Service. And if you want to create a great customer experience, if you want to deliver an amazing customer service experience for your customers, clients, guests, residents, whatever you call them, patients, this is a book you must get. I'm going to actually, as I was reading through it, I'm thinking, okay, I always choose 10 books at the end of the year of my favorite books that I've read that made the most impact or can make the most impact for others that read the book. And I'm saying right now, we've got another one. And we're in May right now, May or June. So this is great. I'm halfway into the year and I already have one of my favorite books I've read. So Robert, there is this acronym, FACTS, FACTS, flexibility, agility, communication, transformation, social responsibility, and elaborate. So, or is it elaborate?
Elaborate.
Elaborate, I know.
I'm from New Jersey. However you say it, where it works.
Yep, it works. So let's go ahead and just do a real quick rundown on what this book, the essence of the book, is about. These are major chapters, 5 major chapters. Tell us about flexibility first.
Well, initially, I wanted to see what are the qualities that Nordstrom had to survive, and I didn't necessarily look for an acronym, but in my writing and in talking to people at Nordstrom, et cetera, and I said, well, flexibility. If you are not able to make a move, you're faced with a certain set of facts, and you need to be flexible in order to make that happen. That's a key part of a great customer service experience. After flexibility comes agility. When you're dealing with a pandemic and you're trying to figure out how are we going to stay in business, how are we going to survive, how do we move personnel so we make the best decision. Agility. Communication, to me, is the key to the whole thing. If you are not communicating clearly with your equals, your staff, nothing is going to get done. And during COVID, the Nordstrom brothers, who run the company now, certainly communicated and were transparent. That's leadership. Transformation is wrapped up into this whole thing because we are constantly transforming. Nordstrom is not what it was 5 years ago. It'll be a different company 5 years from now, and they're comfortable with that change and that transformation. Finally, social responsibility. They're hiring a different kind of person. It's a different generation, different values. So it's not only about what kind of ecological footprint we have, but it's also dealing with a workforce that's more diverse and has a changing way of looking at things. So as I went through all this stuff, these words started bubbling up, and as a writer, when I saw that I could make an easily remembered acronym, I said, well, that's it, and all I need is 5 chapters, and here we are.
And there are 5 good chapters. So you did elaborate quite well. Thank you very much. Now let's go to social responsibility for a moment. And I hear what you're saying. They're socially responsible in their hiring practices, the way they do business. I also know they're socially responsible to the community and things that are important in the world. Can you elaborate on that a bit? Which I don't know if that really comes out in the book, but I think it's important to share because more and more customers want to do business with companies that have a cause or stand for something that's important and gives back to the community.
Well, Nordstrom has always been a citizen of the community, and it could start out with working with juvenile diabetes and sponsoring a 5K run, or it could be looking at their carbon footprint. I mean, they are in the business of consumption, so therefore, we've got all this paper and boxes and all this stuff. What are we going to do with it? So they're very aggressive in recycling and all the things that people are looking for. And then it comes down to accepting people as who they are, and making the Nordstrom a welcoming place for those people who can express who they are. So especially today with the young people going to work for companies, it's more than just what do they sell, how much money can I make, what kind of impact do they have on the community. So that's where the importance of social responsibility is. You can't not have.
Right. Yeah, our annual research indicates more and more, especially with the younger generations, Gen Zs and millennials, very, very important to keep your eye on the social element of your business. Right. We don't have a lot of time left. I do want to talk about how Nordstrom's approach to customer service has stayed the same, and at the same time, it has changed. Core value. Tell me, is this really true? How many pages is the Nordstrom handbook?
It's 1, actually 2 if you reverse what it looks like. So what people get at orientation, they get a 3x5 card. And it says, welcome to Nordstrom. We're glad to have you with our company. Set your goals high, etc. We have only one rule. You turn the card around. It says, use good judgment in all situations. There will be no additional rules. Any other questions, ask your department manager, HR, etc. It's keeping it simple. I mean, this is the ultimate thing. Use good judgment. So my manager thinks I have any judgment at all, but especially if it's good and they're willing to let me use it. Now, some people, and I'll give examples, but I won't get into now because it's too lengthy, but to show what empowerment, what good judgment looks like. So it's not just an abstraction. It's, this is an example that a Nordstrom employee did. That's something that you can do. And so it's simple stuff. It's the execution that's the hard part.
So one of the stories, I don't know if it was in your book or not. I believe it was. The woman that who worked at Nordstrom, person came in to buy a shirt. You were out. Nordstrom was out of it. She said, "Come back in an hour." She went down to the other end of the mall, bought the shirt from a competitor, brought it back, and sold it at whatever the price was that Nordstrom would have sold it. That was in your book, yes?
Right, yeah, and there that's in the book, but there are many variations of that. I can't tell you how many. And when I travel, how many businessmen tell me, I had an important business meeting and I lost my luggage or I forgot to pack my suit, and I called Nordstrom when I got to the town I was in. I explained what I had to deal with. They brought me in. They opened up the store early. They got the tailor, and they got me a suit in an hour, and with a tie and a shirt. I've heard that many times. Again, that's being flexible. That's being agile. That's the communication. Again, I'm saying this ad nauseum, is what does it take to create a happy customer who's going to come back and provide a great experience?
30 years ago, actually more than that, my wife, maybe fiance at the time, so maybe 33, 34 years ago, we went to a restaurant called Tony's. I don't drink alcohol. I mean, I try a sip of wine. I just don't really like the taste and really doesn't really do anything for me as far as a positive feeling. But I like root beer. That's kind of my favorite beer. And I said, everybody's ordering wine. I said, by any chance, do you have root beer? And the server thought for a moment and he said, yes. I thought, wonder why he thought. I didn't think anything of it. So he came back with a cold can of root beer. And I go, that's great. He goes, well, we don't really sell it here, but there's a vending machine in the building. And I remember there being root beer, and he just went to the vending machine and I don't know, put in 50, 75 cents, a buck, whatever it was, came back. And what was really cool is when I poured the root beer into the wine glass, it looked like wine. But it made me think. So today I was at that restaurant having lunch, and I actually told that story to the people we were with. And here it is 30 years later, and I'm still telling the story.
Yeah. And it's, and you said, how much did that root beer cost? Let's say with inflation, it cost a couple of bucks. But you can't buy that kind of advertising, that word of mouth. And that's how Nordstrom has maintained that reputation. And it's one person telling another person, telling another person. And there are many stories. And you can just imagine, I've been out speaking about Nordstrom for close to 30 years, and I hear them all.
Yep. They're great stories. Well, we're just about out of time. The final question's coming because you've been here before. Let's take it from the book. What piece of wisdom from the book haven't you shared with us yet that you'd like to share with us now?
The important thing, if you want to survive, and Nordstrom has been around since 1901, you have to constantly ask yourself, what's next? What can we do to enhance the customer experience so they want to come back? And as I said before, be flexible, be comfortable with transformation. And that's how you survive. That's how you stay in business. And that's really the essence of why I wrote this book. How did Nordstrom survive when the retail graveyard is full with stores that were once great and now no longer exist or are severely diminished? They always want to see how can we positively survive and keep this enterprise going for as long as we can.
Well, I'm hoping that 30 years from now, you and I are here to talk about another book that you've written about how Nordstrom has changed and continues to evolve. Robert, thanks so much for being on the show again. This has been wonderful.
Thanks, Shep. I appreciate it. You take care.
All right, everybody, that wraps it up. The book again is The Century-Old Startup, The Nordstrom Way of Embracing Change, Challenges, and a Culture of Customer Service by Robert Spector. We will be back next week with another interview. Please do come back. Until that time, this is Shep Hyken reminding you to always be amazing.